Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Real Clear Politics Takeaway for Tuesday, November 17th. I'm Tom Bevan, co-founder and president of RCP.
And I'm Carl Cannon, Washington Bureau Chief for Real Clear Politics. Morning, Tom.
Good morning, Carl. It's been 2 weeks since the election. Now entering our third week. It is still not over, but getting closer every day, it seems. Joe Biden came out and made a speech yesterday, but Trump's still pursuing a bunch of legal challenges. We've got a recount going on in Georgia. Carl, where do things stand in your mind?
Well, Joe Biden came out yesterday. He's had pretty good pitch, Tom, since this, he's acting like the president-elect. He's explaining why it's important he believes it's important for President Trump to get with the program and to start engaging as a president who's leaving office instead of one who's preparing for a second term. He mentioned the coronavirus, pandemic, which has now come back as predicted in the autumn with full force, and how he thinks it would look. He stopped short of, recriminations, but he explained why he thought it would be better for the country and safer for Americans if he and his team were brought into the loop on the coronavirus task force. And he said so in a measured way. I think he's starting to I think most people are starting to realize this is true. Well, most people voted for him, but I think, on the Hill, some Republicans, more privately than publicly, are acknowledging the truth of what Biden is saying.
It does seem, Carl, Trump was on a tweet storm yesterday saying, talking about the election being rigged again, and stuff is moving forward in the courts. And I think, as we've said on this program, I think it's fine for Trump to have his day in court, right? But at some point, he's got to produce the goods. His lawyers have to produce the goods. There's a Pennsylvania case that's moving forward right now that there's a big hearing today. But he doesn't just need one state, Carl. He needs 3 states probably to overturn the results. It doesn't look like what's going on. The recount in Georgia is going to produce anything all that different, certainly not at the magnitude that he needs to change the outcome there. So how much longer does he have before Republicans do totally close the door on him and he has to concede and move forward? Are we a week away? Are we 2 weeks away? 2 days? What is it?
Well, look, it's hard to know what's going on in the mind of Donald John Trump. And that's been true for many years, not just the last 4 or 5. But listen, Tom, in my view, what's going on are 2 things. The first is the president seems to want to keep his political viability. He's sort of hinted around at running in 4 years. He encourages these crowds like the one that came to Washington, D.C. this weekend to support him. And his message to them is, it makes sense. It's that, well, of course, you think that I was jobbed because these people are now shrieking at you to accept the election, never accepted my election, not for 4 years. And
he's got a point there, doesn't he?
I think there's a lot of truth to that. I've written that, and I felt strongly about it, and I warned some of my Democratic friends that you can't have a country where one side just doesn't accept the election. Yeah, I think that people like Adam Schiff and these others who tried to delegitimize Trump's presidency, they're not the people who should be lecturing us about accepting an election. Having said that, we have elections. There's not evidence I've not seen any evidence that makes me think that this election was stolen. The evidence I've seen makes me think it was pretty much on the square, and that we have a winner, and that winner is Joe Biden. And it is incumbent on any president, no matter how he was treated, to acknowledge that. So, there's 2 tracks to this argument. But in terms of what the Republicans will do, they're getting antsy. They want to go on to the next phase and see what it is. They want to, figure out where their party is and how they're going to engage with Joe Biden and a shrinking House majority that Nancy Pelosi has. Also, you have these 2 races in Georgia, Tom. I think Trump's refusal to acknowledge that he lost is muddying that message. What are Democrats and Republicans going to say down there? So, I think the time is approaching where Republicans are going to start to pressure the president to acknowledge to either put up hard evidence that makes people go, holy cow, or just to get with the program. You agree?
Yeah. I do, Carl. I think they have to actually, produce some evidence. They say they have it, but they haven't produced it yet, at least in terms of showing enough irregularities or fraud to change the outcome. So, but let's go back and talk about something you said. There was this big march in Washington over the weekend, the Million MAGA March, and which ended with a bunch of, I was scrolling through my Twitter feed and saw a bunch of videos of clashes between Trump supporters and Antifa, BLM. There were some Proud Boys there mixing it up. There has been, Biden has said, it's time to heal. He said that in his speech last weekend. And this idea that we all just need to move on. And it doesn't seem, Carl, setting aside whether the Trump supporters are going to walk away, and I think they will, feeling this election was stolen from Donald Trump. But the idea that after, as you mentioned, 4 years of demonizing this president, calling his supporters racists and bigots and homophobes and all that stuff, that the idea, even if Joe Biden does have the best of intentions and does believe that in his heart, although he ran his campaign basically saying Donald Trump, was saying there were, based on the sort of lie of Charlottesville, that there were fine people on both sides, that Trump had said that. But even if Biden has the best of intentions, Carl, it doesn't seem like the Trump folks are warming to the idea of reconciliation and kumbaya and let bygones be bygones and all of that. I foresee this to be a very continuing tumultuous time in our country. I think the social fabric is going to continue to tear, especially if you do have Democrats who again, irrespective of what Joe Biden says, but others that want to, prosecute people, keep lists, try and shame them out of holding jobs and the like. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better, Carl.
Well, Tom, that's up to Joe Biden. He's the president-elect, and when he takes the oath of office, if he means what he said, that he'll represent the people who didn't vote for him as much as he does the people who did, he can put a stop to all that. And some of these people on the fringe that you're talking about who want to blackball people work for Trump, Biden can end that. And if he's sincere in what he's saying, and I think it's a message the country really needs to embrace, he's going to have to back it up with some actions. But the most, the thing he does that he's been doing for 47 years, he does not mind talking to Republicans. He does not mind talking to people on the other side. If the Senate stays in Republican hands, I think that would benefit this Joe Biden, actually. And he's going to have to negotiate with McConnell. McConnell will not refuse to negotiate with him. And you could have a situation where Washington started to work again. And by that, what I mean is having legislation pass, important legislation that takes into account not just a thin majority that can ram it through, but a consensus that would be backed by majorities in the country. And I think, whatever it is, tax policy, healthcare policy, whatever you're talking about, it's a heavy lift, but Biden may be the right man for the times.
Once again, Carl, you are the eternal optimist, and I am the insufferable cynic. I don't see any of that happening. And I also, look, again, I'm not sure Joe Biden, as you say, I'm not sure he's the dog that's wagging the tail. It might be the other way around. I'm not sure how much influence he has. He can say whatever he wants. Is that going to stop AOC or some of these other folks from, publicly shaming people? Is that going to stop folks in the media from doing that? I don't think Biden has that kind of power, even assuming that's what his, intentions are. So we will find out. Time will tell. We'll have to leave it there. I'm Tom Bevan, co-founder and president of Real Clear Politics.
And I'm Carl Cannon, Washington bureau chief for Real Clear Politics. And this has been the RCP Takeaway for Tuesday, November 17th, 2020.